Hi everyone. Welcome to Combating Consumerism interview series. I'm Kelsey, Vice President of ATTACC, and this is Vanessa from MudLab. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure, my name's Vanessa, and I founded MudLab in 2019.
Okay, so I'll get started with the questions. I was just going to start out with kind of an introduction to the company. And my first question I was going to ask is just like, what is MudLab? How was it started? What do you do? And anything else you want to add?
So MudLab is a zero waste cafe and grocery store, and we're sort of more, I guess we're sort of more like a general store in that we don't have the full array of groceries, and that's mostly because the zero waste supply chain is not fully developed yet. It's very hard to purchase items without packaging or with only reusable packaging, and those are two things that we try to do. I would say 98% of our products are received in reusable packaging, and then we send that packaging back to be used by the companies again. And so that's hard to do. And so yeah, so that's why I say we're a grocery store, but we don't have like you couldn't. It's not a one-stop shop. Unfortunately, we do hope to eventually become that. We started in 2019 kind of in response to I was trying to go zero waste, and I felt like there was nowhere that I could really go to buy things that weren't packaged in single-use plastics.
Yeah, so that's really great. It's a really cool like concept. So for the second question, I was just going to ask like, what do you think the main goals or values of your company are?
So, our main goal is to build community resilience through kind of supporting and so envisioning and supporting the circular economy. So, the circular economy, right, where things don't just kind of go to a landfill, but rather they're retaken up and either reused, recycled, ideally reused versus recycled, because as we know, most things don't get recycled, and recycling does use a tremendous amount of energy and that sort of thing. So yeah, and we also try to be a sustainability hub in many ways. We've launched a number of, or we've helped to launch a number of zero waste brands. We are a collection station for dispatch goods, for instance. We also helped the folks from Reup get started by sponsoring them when they were a very young business. And then we try to bring in artists and community members who make things from discarded goods or reused goods. We also have quite a few programs to support community members who might be affected by the pandemic or by other misfortunes. So we give away free food every week, and we give away free coffee every day.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. Next, I was just going to ask, like, what I think you kind of already described this, but like, what are some of the main steps you've taken to become a sustainable business?
Yeah, so actually, we're going through a process right now to become green business certified. Involve kind of switching out a couple. I mean, even a business like us that's built on sustainability and zero waste, we had a few things that we could improve on. They made some recommendations. For instance, like we were using a cleaning product that could have been improved by using a better one, and then there were some light bulbs that we received in the space that we're currently in that we can switch out to be more energy efficient. So I think really being a sustainable business is just always about kind of reevaluating your operations and making changes as research develops, because there's always new studies coming out, right? We originally carried these dishwashing pods, but then someone pointed us to this study that shows that actually some brands of dishwashing pods don't break down. And so we decided, just so that we wouldn't be sort of propagating this idea that dishwashing pods were good for the environment, even though, some of them are, unfortunately. But we switched over to a different kind of laundry detergent because we don't want to support something that then would lead people to making decisions in their lives that aren't, up to date.
Yeah, that's really cool. And next, I was just going to ask if you could describe some of your environmental programs and partnerships. Like I saw that you have community cleanups, you have like educational workshops. So it'd be great if you could just like talk about some of those.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I guess before MudLab even started, we were a nonprofit called For Here Please. And For Here Please got started because I was running Lake Merritt every day, and this was before I had a baby. I was running every day. Um, and I saw so much trash, and I wanted to do something about it. So I started to approach businesses just to say, hey, would you be willing to be a plastic-free business? And the first few that I approached said no, they didn't want to. But then the third one, which was called Perch Coffee House at the time, and was the former MudLab location, they agreed. And so they went plastic free Labor Day of 2019. Was that 2019? Gosh, it was so long ago. Anyway, so that was really exciting, that businesses were willing to make that decision, even if it meant sort of alienating some of their customers, even, or risking their business. Because, you don't want to, a coffee shop runs on very slim margins. And so if you anger your client base, you're really putting yourself at risk. So we got started as a sort of a lake cleanup group. I had a plogging group. Plogging is picking up trash while jogging, and we would run around and pick up trash. And then we kind of continued that on when MudLab moved to its current location. So we do second Saturday cleanups, and we pick up trash just to raise awareness about the trash problem and to help connect people to the end use of their single-use plastic items, because it turns out I think over 75% of the trash that ends up in the bay and the estuaries and the ocean is from food service. So unfortunately, even if you put it in a trash can, seagulls might pull it out, or the wind might knock it over, and then it ends up in the water anyway.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of like educating the community. It's really cool. So now I was just going to get into more personal questions that you can answer. And first, I was just going to ask if you could describe your own definition of consumerism and why you think it's harmful.
I think consumerism stems from a desire to kind of keep up with other people, and to I think as humans, it's natural to compare ourselves to others and to want to have like the latest and the greatest item. I think also there's a certain aspect of companies surviving in a very competitive market. I think planned obsolescence is a real problem, wherein your device breaks down right as a new device is coming out. Right, that this isn't by chance. This is planned, and it's encouraging you to buy more so that the people at the top of the corporations can make more money by selling more gadgets or whatever it is. So I think one way to combat that is through worker collaboratives, through having businesses that are cooperatively owned, so that not one person is profiting, but so that everybody within a business is profiting. Because I think then you're doing things that are benefiting the triple bottom line versus the single bottom line, which is the salary of the higher ups. And when we talk about the triple bottom line, it's like the people, the planet, and then profits last.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So next I was going to ask, like, how do you think we can change our consumer society to be more sustainable? But first I was just going to wonder, do you think this change needs to be more to the structure of our society or more like on an individual level, like with people making changes specifically to their own lives?
I think they go hand in hand. It's government policy is unfortunately one of the only ways that people make permanent changes in their lives. Like if you are taxed or if you suffer because of a decision that you're making, then that's going to put pressure on you to change it. So if something's more expensive, you're going to consume less of that, right? It's like kind of basic economics. But at the same time, I think our individual decisions can make a big difference. I think there's a lot of like pressure on people. It's like, well, remember your reusable mug and, make sure you have a bamboo toothbrush. But really the most of the plastic that's ending up in the ocean is from like commercial fishing or, like huge corporations that are producing kind of these vast amounts of plastic. And so we have to start with the individual, but then eventually it has to be at the bigger level, because otherwise our little individual changes aren't really making that much of an impact, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. So the next question, well, you kind of already answered this, but like, what are some changes you think that need to be made to government policies in order to do this? Or even, do you think we need to make changes to our government structure in general?
I'm kind of a socialist myself. However, I mean, I think That's a really good question. I think there's a lot of great bills that are coming up, and unfortunately, some of them don't pass. But there's a lot of great things that are coming about just because people are becoming more and more educated about where plastic is ending up. I think one of the problems with our government is that it is so effective, right? Our government and our infrastructure is such that trash is just whisked away and no one has to ever think about it, right? But when you go to a country where the government is not functioning so well and there aren't publicly emptied trash cans, then that's when you're confronted with the trash problem. And I think that's when you get the more innovative solutions to how can we deal with this trash that's all around us, versus people in the suburbs and sometimes in the cities. You don't really come into contact with trash that often. I live in a rural area now. I had to move out of Oakland, unfortunately. I couldn't afford it. But I live in a rural area and I never see any trash. But that doesn't mean that people aren't producing vast amounts of trash. It's just that the trash services here are really good at whisking it away. And so when you throw things in the trash, they really are just going away and you don't have to deal with them anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely a really interesting way to think about it. Next I was just going to ask, like, why are these changes needed? Like, can you maybe explain to people watching this video, like, how will this benefit them? And maybe if you have any examples of from how your company is benefiting your community, you could add those as well.
I think when we see these impacts of climate change, I think that's the most moving example, right? It's like sooner or later, you or a family member or a friend is going to be impacted by climate change, and climate change is happening because of these things, right? Science shows us that the globe is warming because of the things humans are doing to it, and so I don't know. I mean, it's like a Greta Thunberg, moment. It's like we're in this crisis here, and in order to preserve the planet for future generations, I think when people have children, it's their duty to take their children out and show them what humans are actually doing to the world, not just the beautiful parks, but take them to the landfill, show them kind of how humans are creating such waste.
Yeah, definitely. Next, I was just going to ask, like, what are some changes that, like, maybe you've made to your daily life, or changes other people can make to their lives, to help combat this?
I always tell the story. I once broke up with someone because he refused to stop using single-use plastics. It's hard to live a life without any single-use plastics, right? Especially, now that I have a child, I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's sometimes the only thing that he will eat is wrapped in a single-use plastic. And so then I'm like, well, does my child not eat, or do I buy a TerraCycle box and try to upcycle that? I don't think there's any perfect solution. In terms of day-to-day life, I think you just have to do the best with what you have where you are, and then I think asking specific businesses to change is the only way that businesses will know that they need to change. So whenever I go out, I never, right, I always say, no, I don't need a bag, have you ever considered not having bags, like that kind of thing. Just engaging in dialogues with business owners, because it's business owners, and at first very small businesses and then eventually big corporations that are going to be having the impact on how much trash we create as a society.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It comes from like the businesses, less the individual. Are there any kind of lessons you want to share that you've learned from your journey to become more sustainable?
I sometimes look around and I'm just disgusted by how much stuff I have, and then people will come over and they'll say, "Well, you really don't have that much stuff." I think the biggest lesson is usually you can just wait and something will come into your life versus going out and buying it. I think people should join all of those buy nothing groups. They should start talking to each other about what they have in excess. Obviously, we want to support businesses as well, but I think it's really important to vote with your dollar and support businesses that are sourcing things locally, that are paying their staff a living wage, that are making decisions that are really good for the environment, because once everybody is doing that, then those businesses will be elevated.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So kind of going off of that, are there any kind of like recommendations that you know of, like companies or businesses that have like a similar values and similar sustainable mission to MudLab that like you'd like to share with viewers watching this?
Dispatch Goods is I love. They're doing sustainable takeout. Square Pie Guys, I know they're very willing to work with community members and they donate a lot of money to charity and things like that. There's a lot of great reuse businesses that are getting going. I don't know. I feel like every day I hear about another one, which is exciting. I saw this thing on Twitter the other day. This guy said, the climate change isn't going to be solved by one or two climate activists. It's going to be solved by thousands, hundreds of thousands of climate activists. So I think we all have to be a climate activist. So I encourage my students, I'm a teacher now. I encourage my students to start sustainable businesses. I think all new businesses moving forward should be circular businesses, and I think that's something that will only happen when consumers are putting pressure on companies to take care of their own trash.
Yeah, definitely. So those are all the questions for that part so far. So I was just wondering to wrap up, like, are there any last words of advice or like a message you'd like to share with anyone watching?
Um, I guess just don't lose hope. I think there's a lot of people who get into zero waste or get into sustainability and then they see kind of like the mountain of, you know, corporate lobbyists and just like really entrenched businesses that have all this advertising money in. But I mean, Coca Cola came out the other day and they were like, we're not going away from plastic. We're not going to do that. But then another company did. And you can just see that, like people are just, they're not putting up with that anymore. Like Coca Cola alienated a lot of customers that way. And I think eventually they're going to change. It might be 5 years from now. But it's at this point, I think it's about being on the right side of history. And I'm really hoping that other corporations will jump on board soon.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good like message to have, just to keep hope in this. So that's all of my questions. So thank you so much for speaking today,
Yeah,
and thank you to
absolutely.
anyone
Thank you.
watching this.